Hey there, folks. This is not going to be kind of a typical content format. However, I just got done watching the Shawn Ryan Show interview with Mr. Brian here, and I have to say I'm not very impressed with the excuses he's giving. So I'm not going to do a full breakdown of the whole thing because it's a very long video, but I highly encourage you to go check it out and leave a comment and tell Brian what you think of what he had to say. I'm more going to just kind of focus in on one area that it just rubbed me the wrong way. So hopefully you guys like it, and like, subscribe, hit that bell notification, and if you have any other things you want me to review, just let me know, and we'll go from there.
So, table the drones, which would have been awesome. Absolutely. I believe in it, but I can't break the law to do it. We're out there not only protecting them physically, but I have to protect the reputation of the client also. And that's a whole separate thing of protection. So, the drones would have been awesome, but I can't break the law. They could have used them. They chose not to. And you got Overwatch, yeah, snipers on roofs. I got guys that are qualified. That's their career. But this is not a State Department job. I don't have an ITAR, and this is not Iraq. This is Utah. I can't go in and set up, observation points with snipers. That's against the law.
Okay, so this gentleman here states that he has been in law enforcement for over 14 years and has been involved in executive protection for Charlie Kirk at least since 2018. It's currently 2025, right? So 7 going on 8 years, it would appear. Now he here is talking about how they weren't able to take measures to counter snipers because, in his words, and I've heard that this has been disputed, the university is too close to a major airport, right? Class Bravo airspace there in Utah. And at the same time, well, we can't just put snipers on roofs, CONUS guys. Well, sorry to sound a little bit sardonic there, but from one professional to another, this gentleman here is full of it. There is a way that you can absolutely prevent snipers without having to have a counter sniper team or drones. It is called having a tactical observation post. And anybody that's picked up and skimmed a used copy of Just 2 Seconds by Gavin DeBecker will know about this. Anytime you have a vantage point that would be great for a sniper, right? Elevated position, clear line of sight over where an intended target would be, you don't need counter snipers and you don't need drones. What you need is one, preferably 2 guys armed with handguns, with binoculars and radios. And that does 99% of the work that a counter sniper can do. Yeah, they can't reach out and touch somebody with a rifle, but again, as he says, you can't do that here, right? What they can do, however, is twofold. Number one, they engage in area denial. Somebody who wants to commit criminal homicide is probably not going to go on a rooftop where you've got some gentlemen with shaved heads and Oakleys and handguns, concealed or not. Right? They're just not going to want to go there. Path of least resistance. They're not going to take that avenue. That's area denial. And then, or if they try, they're probably going to get shot for their trouble, especially if you've got 2 people, right? 2-to-1 advantage. Number 2. While they're engaging in area denial, especially if you've got a 2-man team, one can kind of watch the rooftop, the other can watch the crowd, utilizing a set of simple binoculars, and then utilize the radio to call out any suspicious activity, where they are. Preferably you have unified command where you've got local law enforcement as well as the regular security detail. Call out suspicious activity. By the way, you should have people embedded in the crowd in order to project force. If you're not doing that, you're operating on outdated tactics. Plain and simple. Okay, let's keep listening here.
Can't break federal and state law to do what we need to accomplish. So that's their job. Our job is the close protection bubble, and there's a saying on this, and there's areas of responsibility, and we cut up the areas of responsibility in this prelude, or when we start doing the advance. Right, we got this, you've got this, and so they have that Overwatch capability, and they have an MOU for SWAT for that through Orem, not utilized.
Okay, so why is it that we are blaming everybody else when it comes down to protecting your principal? Yes, you can't necessarily force the police to do what you want. Believe me, I've had to deal with non-cooperative law enforcement. However, it doesn't even sound like you asked. You didn't go, hey guys, are you going to be providing this service, and this service? We would like this. This is what we need. It doesn't sound like you even tried. This is just something that pet peeve of mine, right? You receive not because you ask not. And if you're not asking for the assets you want, you're just kind of like, oh, well, they didn't provide them. Okay, well, then I think that's a failure on your part. Now, if you asked and they said, no, we're not going to do that, we're not interested, okay, you've done your due diligence. At that point, you need to make a call. Hey, do we need to scrub this or not? Right? Or is this something that is worth the risk? Ultimately, it's the principal's call. You can't make them do anything either. All you can do is advise them and start trying your best to plan around it. Still, it sounds like a major planning failure on his part.
Don't know why. That's a question for them to ask. Why didn't you call? Or why didn't you ask for assistance, especially when this crowd grew?
Sir, why didn't you ask for assistance? One professional to another. Why didn't you ask for those assets?
All your pride. People, you go, hey, we need some help.
Look at Shawn's face. His eyes are looking at him with disbelief. He's covering his mouth because his whole shtick is that he's a really nice guy. Really nice, really agreeable. He's not known for his pushback. He tends to do softball interviews with whoever he interviews. He'll ask tough questions, but not that many. And he doesn't do a lot of follow-up stuff. But you can tell, behind his hand here, he's trying to say, what the hell are you talking about? To put it frankly. Those eyes are not sympathetic. Those eyes say, are you effing kidding me? Again, this is a man here who has plenty of experience and he knows what's BS and what's not. Anyway, continuing.
All your pride or whatever it is, we need some help. I took 12 guys there. I had double the amount of people there that the PD had. And we're only...
If you had 12 guys and the PD had 6, why do you need 12 guys just doing close protection. If you had multiple vantage points, you could have peeled like 3 two-man teams, put them at the 3 most likely vantage points, and you would have had tactical observation posts that would have served your needs. Or you could have paired them up, each with a cop. Done the same thing, or had the cops do that. And then had your guys go in the crowd. It is a terrible waste of manpower to just have 12 guys doing the same concentric circle. I know he kind of goes on later to talk about how, oh, well, we have our different rings of security and the different levels of permeability and all that. But again, it sounds like there's not a lot of active access control until you get to the impermeable or non-permeable layer. And again, unless you're dealing with an all-out war, or you're in Iraq and Afghanistan and up-armored Humvees or something, you don't need a 12-man team protecting one guy. And again, unless it's the President of the United States or a foreign dignitary or somebody that is just so important that if they get shot, world events will stop. You do not need 12 people doing arms distance security. You just don't. That is a waste of resources and manpower.
We're responsible for the first 30 meters in movement in and advancing in and receiving and out. And we had 12 guys. They gave me 6 for the rest of the campus.
Jeez.
Yeah. And so
I have been to events where I've had 1 or 2 agents protecting one person in a very large crowd where we didn't have a lot of control and maybe a little extra house security or whatever. You make do. You make do. You plan around it. You had 12 guys of your own, plus 6 cops, plus however many that you could have asked to help that had an MOU, had you known how to leverage your contacts. And it sounds like, again, I'm sorry to beat a dead horse, but you squandered resources.
that's not the question for me to say, why didn't they? That's the question for them. And so there was that one.
That's absolutely a question for you. You are the one who signed a contract taking responsibility for the protection of somebody else's life. If that person gets killed on your watch, I don't care what happened, whether it was fully in your control or not. You are responsible for that person. My dad, I love him very much, has a saying that used to always rub me the wrong way, but as I've gotten older, I've kind of seen the wisdom in it. Son, that may not be your fault for whatever just happened. However, it is your responsibility, right? I'm a parent. If I'm with my kid, I am responsible for my kid. If they get struck by lightning, okay, I didn't make the lightning strike them, but I'm responsible for the response. I'm responsible for them being outside and exposed to that, right? I have taken custody of somebody else's life, and I've put that in my hands. You did that. And now the person's life that you put in your hands has been snuffed out. And it sounds like you failed to do your due diligence. And you have nothing to offer but excuse after excuse after excuse. One professional to another, I think you should retire, go sell car insurance. Actually, you would need some confidence in order to be able to do that. Maybe with all that flop sweat, You could go be a janitor somewhere. I don't know. But I don't think you belong in this industry. Anybody that's working for this gentleman, I highly recommend you find another employer somewhere else. This guy's not it. Just not. He's just not. Maybe you're all super squared away, but you're only as good as the operations planning. And he says it's decentralized and how, everybody can lead from where they're at. And I'm sure there's some truth in that. But ultimately, the buck stops with somebody. And in this case, the buck stops with him. All right, that's enough of my ranting and raving. I hope you at least learned something between my frustration and my references, because at the end of the day, there were measures he could have taken. You don't need snipers. You don't need drones. You don't need 1,000 cops. You need better planning. And if you are not smart enough to figure out how to run a simple tactical observation post you, no offense, have no business in this industry.